my gosh. Character drink orders? Wait, that's like so unique and fun until a fae from the Nordic pantheon strolls into her life and informs her that she's been sharing a bed with the Prince of Hell. It smells old. It smells used. It's definitely used. It was definitely an impulse buy, but sometimes those are the best ones. Oh, ow. Look at the bright blue color of this shirt. Is it not so much fun? I feel like I match the sky today. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. So I have been doing a lot of book shopping. I was doing some just browsing. But then there were so many good books that I stumbled upon. I don't even know which two have arrived. I've got a couple of different packages coming for whatever reason. They're coming at different times, so this will be kind of a choppy little book haul, but I am always so excited to get book mail. So a lot of this shopping was done in prep for October or just like the fall in general. I'm prepping basically my fall TBR. That's essentially what I'm doing. Ooh! It's like Christmas. It really is. Just anytime that you get book mail. It's just this very specific kind of excitement that I feel. Okay, I'm gonna start with one that I actually saw in Barnes & Noble. Can you see the sprayed edges already? Kind of matches my shirt. Wait, it like really does. Oh, that's cute. I saw this in Barnes & Noble on, I want to say like a fantasy table a couple of months ago, but it wasn't a book that I had ever heard of. I didn't know anything about it. And I was just kind of going around like taking pictures of like the covers of books. I was not in the mood to like go on Goodreads or Amazon and like look at reviews and all of that. It was just like a quick little jaunt into Barnes & Noble. Anyway, this cover caught my eye, and I believe it is going to be a series, but I never continue a series if I don't like the first book. So hopefully I like this. The vibes of this, it was definitely the the cover initially and not even necessarily the blurb that caught my eye, but this is The Deer and the Dragon by Piper CJ. It says, the deities you call aren't always the ones who answer. Marlowe needs to believe she's crazy. The alternative would mean embracing the gift or curse shared by her mother and grandmother. She can see angels and demons, including a dark and haunting entity who's been with Marlowe her entire life. At least she believes that's all he is, until a fae from the Nordic pantheon strolls into her life and informs her that she's been sharing a bed with the Prince of Hell. A prince who's now gone missing. Before she knows it, Marlowe is deeply entangled in a centuries-old war, stumbling straight into a battleground between mighty beings of myth and legend from powerful pantheons around the world, and who will come out on top may just depend on her and the love she never dared to believe in. So it's like, she can see angels and demons. It's a little bit Ninth House vibes. In Ninth House, Alex can see ghosts, and then like Darlington goes missing, and so this kind of reminds me of that too. Or is it in Hellbent that he goes missing? I forget. But then there's also fae, mentioning of fae from the Nordic pantheon. I don't really know much about like Greek gods, Nordic gods, like anything like that. Sometimes I do not pick up books that reference that because I'm always like, I'm not gonna understand like the references, but I'm also not the biggest fan of fae, to be completely honest, which I think is why I probably passed on this the first time I saw it in the bookstore. Like, I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, wasn't a big fan, don't come for me, I get it, like I totally understand the hype. I read it, you know, I didn't DNF it, like I read through the whole thing. I don't know, it just doesn't grab me. Like, Twilight and vampires, that kind of had its moment. That grabbed me when I was like, you know, 14 or 15. And I love fantasy, and I don't mind reading about like different types of creatures like angels and demons and ghosts and all that stuff, but I am just very curious about this one. I think it's going to satisfy the little dark academic little villain that lives in my brain. I don't think she's in a school or anything like that, but there's something about finding out your like childhood imaginary friend turning out to be the Prince of Hell is just like such a vibe. As soon as the weather starts to get a little bit cooler, this is the type of thing that I'm going to start to crave reading. Oh my gosh. Character drink orders? Wait, that's like so unique and fun. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. And then I think this might be the only like real horror book that I buy. So boyfriend and I aren't super into like Halloween. We usually don't like go out for Halloween. Obviously I used to like trick or treat as a kid. That was a lot of fun. And I have been to like haunted houses and stuff, but the older I get, the more I just want to like cozy up at home with like a slightly scary book. This was one of those books where I was looking up something else and then like scrolled down to see similar books, and this one popped up. It looked really interesting. I'm a sucker for just a good cover. Anyway, this is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. And it had pretty good reviews. If I do Vlogtober this year, it would be fun to maybe do like a reading vlog with this, like reading as much as I can in 24 hours kind of a thing. It says, ever since Vera and Thiago bought the Itza, life has gotten strange. The ads for the world's most advanced smart speaker didn't mention scratching in the walls, eerie music in the dead of night, or peculiar packages. It's weird but amusing right up until Vera is killed and Thiago's world becomes unbearable. The only thing left to do is to get as far away from Chicago as possible. But Thiago soon realizes there's no escape. Not from his guilt, not from his anger, and not from the evil hunting him. A startling, darkly funny horror novel about grief and rage, the loneliness of living between cultures, and the all too real oppressive intimacy of technology, Gus Moreno's This Thing Between Us marks the arrival of a spectacular new talent. I like that it says it's darkly funny. I love me like a black comedy. It was definitely an impulse buy, but sometimes those are the best ones because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't look it up beforehand. It just sounds really interesting. The concept of this speaker, I do love freaky technology, like, I don't know, stuff with like AI. It really does kind of freak me out. So this could be like actually kind of scary for me. All right, those were the first two. Moving on. Good morning, everybody. I just ran to the post office and I grabbed my two, maybe three, I'm not totally sure. A few more books, so let's sit down and see which ones they are. Definitely think that we should start calling books bound printed matter. Bound printed matter, also known as a book. Got some coupons. Okay, first up, a very battered copy and waterlogged possibly. It's green, so I'm not really totally sure what that might be. Anyway, a copy of The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. I think that's how you say her last name. This is one of those books that, I don't know if you guys have ever read it, but it's like, it always shows up somehow, some way. And I've never read it. I have read the like Abraham Hicks Law of Attraction type books, and I'm pretty sure that's what this basically is. But I've never read this one specifically, so I'm curious if it's like sort of a slightly different take on it. So that description doesn't actually say what it's about, but I'm pretty sure it's about like a manifestation and that kind of thing. Anyway, there's The Secret. This is Ascension by Nicholas Binge. So I'm currently in this writing course where they bring on an author, a published author, once or twice a month, and we do like a live Zoom call with them. And Nicholas Binge was not the most recent, but the one before last. When he was describing his book and like reading, they always read an excerpt from whatever book that they have out. It just sounded really fascinating, and Stephen King actually blurbed it. He calls it old school creepy, a 5-star horror novel. The author even talks about how he had no idea that Stephen King was going to blurb it, so that's pretty impressive. The tagline is "The only way out is up." Basically, it kind of sounds like very Lovecraftian, like it was inspired maybe a little bit by like At the Mountains of Madness. It also has like some Interstellar kind of vibes to it, the Christopher Nolan film, from his description of it. It says, when a mountain mysteriously appears in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a group of scientists are sent to investigate. Explorer Harry Tunmore agrees to join the secret mission, and he has his own reasons beyond scientific curiosity. But the higher the team ascend, the stranger things become. Time moves differently. Memories of their lives before the mountain begin to fade. What or who will they discover at the top? And he says he already is working on a second book. If I like this, I will most certainly buy his next one. And he said it was even wackier and crazier than this. But apparently by the time that they get to the top of the mountain, there's like interdimensional, like time warping type stuff happening, which I love. Like I love Interstellar. I love the play on like the interdimensional space and time. So I'm excited for this. I'm about to finish one of my like reading around the world books, the one that I'm reading for this month. So this may have to be my next read as soon as I finish that one. Where did I put them? Here they are. I have just come back from the post office. It's a new day. It's been like a week. And we have a new package. So we have more bound printed matter. I love bound printed matter. We have 2 books. One of them, I don't know when I will ever get to. It's a slightly battered copy of Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon. So this is, I want to say, the 4th book in the Outlander series. I think there's 9 out right now, and then the 10th she's like still working on, I guess. But it was supposed to be, it's going to be a 10-book series, I think. As much as I sometimes loathe really long books, for like a fantasy style book, like something like Game of Thrones or something like Outlander, I just love it. It's like a book to cozy up with night after night after night on like a long winter stretch of time, like on like a winter break type situation, like a Christmas break. This is like such a nice book for that. So I will probably save it for the winter time. And I'm pretty sure I haven't read this one. I'm pretty sure I've read the first 3. I know I've read the first 3. And I went back and looked, and all the places that I keep my like book information and like book data, and I didn't have anything for this. Like I didn't have any history of it anywhere. So it smells old. It smells used. It's definitely used. I've read a couple of romance fantasy type books here recently and been not impressed, because when you're reading, she's basically like the GOAT in my opinion. So anything else pales in comparison. So I just need to get back on my Outlander grind. So this is Drums of Autumn. And then we have one for my Reading Around the World series. This is a pretty like well-known one for, which country was this? I think this is for the Czech Republic. Milan Kundera. This is The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I've heard this book. I've heard of it so many times. Didn't really recognize any of the covers I saw online, so I just ended up getting the cheapest copy I could find in decent condition on eBay, and it gets really, really high praises, so I figured this would be a good one to add to my little challenge, my Reading Around the World challenge. So if you don't know what it's about, it says, a young woman in love with a man torn between his love for her and his incorrigible womanizing. One of his mistresses and her humbly faithful lover. These are the 2 couples whose story is told in this masterful novel. In a world in which lives are shaped by irrevocable choices and by fortuitous events, a world in which everything occurs but once, existence seems to lose its substance, its weight. Hence we feel the unbearable lightness of being, not only as the consequence of our pristine actions, but also in the public sphere, and the 2 inevitably intertwine. It's kind of one of those blurbs that's very abstract, and it's more of like a concept than an actual summary of the plot. I don't know why people love it so much, but I always hear good things, and it's relatively short. It's right at 300 pages, which is good because I'm trying to keep my Reading Around the World challenge books a little bit on the shorter side, so I can move through them nice and quick. This one, yeah, originally written in Czech, so this will be for the Czech Republic. So there's The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Oh, and then I had a couple of others come the other day and I completely forgot. I don't think I mentioned these yet, but these came in earlier. So I'm really excited for this one. An author who was brought on as like a guest speaker for my writing workshop that I'm in right now. He recommended this book. At the end of the interview, some people were like, can you recommend some books? Like, what are you reading and loving right now? And he mentioned this and he was really giving it high praise. He said, there's a twist only like a third of the way in that would have been like a typical book's like big climax, and it just like keeps getting crazier and crazier, and it's really short. There is no Antimemetics Division by Quantum. I've never heard of this author. Obviously it's like a pseudonym, but it just sounds so cool. I love like dystopic 1984 style books, Brave New World, just weird, wacky stuff like this. And it's just so short. I feel like it's going to be one of those really bingeable books I just kind of like read over a weekend. It says, an anti-meme is an idea with self-censoring properties, an idea which by its intrinsic nature discourages or prevents people from spreading it. Anti-memes are real. Think of any piece of information which you wouldn't share with anybody, like passwords, taboos, and dirty secrets. Or any piece of information which would be difficult to share even if you tried. But anomalous anti-memes are another matter entirely. How do you contain something you can't record or remember? How do you fight a war against an enemy with effortless, perfect camouflage when you can never even know that you're at war? Welcome to the Antimemetics Division. No, this is not your first day. I love it. It sounds like, you know, kind of a high concept sort of book. It honestly sounds like the inspiration that like Christopher Nolan would use for a film or something like that. I will probably get to this soon, and then maybe it'll be like in an August wrap up. And then one that I have had on my TBR for so long. I originally saw this in a bookstore, saw it on the shelf, thought, ooh, that looks like a really good like Halloween time read, like autumn read. Put it on my TBR, like I pinned it on Pinterest on my to be read board. And then, of course, it got buried under a million other books that I pin all the time, and that is Slewfoot by Brom. So he's mainly known as an illustrator, and some of his works are throughout this. I think there's at least a dozen or two different of his original pieces, but it sounds very much like a The Witch movie sort of vibe, or like an old dark fairy tale. It says it's set in colonial New England. It's a tale of magic and mystery, of triumph and terror, from the acclaimed author and artist. An ancient spirit awakens in a dark wood. The wild folk call him Father, Slayer, Protector. The colonists call him Slewfoot, Demon, Devil. To Abatha, a recently widowed outcast, alone and vulnerable in her pious village, he is the only one she can turn to for help. Together, they ignite a battle between pagan and Puritan, one that threatens to destroy the entire village, leaving nothing but ashes and bloodshed in its wake. So it's like The Witch meets the Crucible, maybe? I don't know. It's giving like Crucible sort of vibes. This cover I love. And I love that it's like kind of big and chunky. I love a nice floppy paperback. So this will be really fun to cozy up to, probably like on Halloween night maybe. I don't know. I already have a couple that I'm like planning that for, so this will definitely be an October read for sure. Good morning, friends. It is a new day. I just ran to my mailboxes and we have a new book. I'm excited about this one. It's a little bent. Ooh, maybe. Okay, it's a little wonky, but that's okay. It is a gorgeous and gothic novel called Fragile Animals by Genevieve Jagger. I saw this cover and I was immediately taken by it. Maybe I can... Ugh. That's a weird sound. It's a slick literary vampire novel to sink your teeth into. I mean, can we just appreciate this for like a few seconds? I was doing research on this. One of the reviews, like the top review on Goodreads, was pretty much the thing that convinced me to get it. I just thought it was so funny. It was just like a one-sentence review. So this says, when an ex-Catholic woman develops a sexual relationship with a vampire, she's forced to confront the memories that haunt her religious past. Struggling to deal with the familial trauma of her Catholic upbringing, hotel cleaner Noelle travels from Edinburgh to the Isle of Bute. There she meets a man who claims to be a vampire, and a relationship blooms between them based solely on confession. But as talk grows sacrilegious and the weather outside grows colder, Noelle becomes hounded by memories of her past, her blasphemous sexuality, and the love she lost while stuck in the closet, of her mother's affair with the local priest, and the part she played in ending it. It just sounds very dichotomous. Lots of like the protagonist being pulled in different moral directions, and the great irony of her being Catholic and then being approached by this vampire. So I'm especially excited for this one. This is definitely going to be kind of a late September, early October read maybe. As soon as it starts to get cold outside, I'm there for it. I'm a little bummed that it's kind of wonky. We could always use that as a metaphor for the contents of this book. It's been a minute since I've read a vampire novel. Actually, that's not true. I did read Serpent and the Wings of Night, which I kind of ranted about in my July wrap-up. So I have read something about vampires recently, but I definitely want to get into something that's a little bit more adult, a little bit more serious, and this sounds like it's going to be it. I love some religious angst, sexy vampires, or maybe he won't be. I love the design of it too. Like, it's just so simple. There's something about it that's just so striking. Anyway, that is Fragile Animals. What are you doing? What is up, guys? So it is not even a filming day, but I had a really exciting package come in the mail and I already opened it because I couldn't wait. So these are, all except one of them, are for my Reading Around the World challenge. So the first one is the one that is not for my Reading Around the World challenge. It's such a mouthful to say that. This one is Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. This is where it came out in the 60s, but it's where she exposed the use of pesticides on wildlife, like the detrimental effects that they have. She described the nests full of eggs that would never hatch, the rivers bloated with poisoned fish, and the children killed by the very substances which had been lauded as a scientific miracle. This book, I guess, had an impact directly on like government policy. Kind of inspired the sort of like, not necessarily the climate crisis movement, but ecological movement and stuff. So I'm just curious about the food industry, the agricultural industry. I read Michael Pollan's The Omnivore's Dilemma like last year, I think it was, and thought it was really fascinating. And so this sounds like it's similar, but coming at it from a different angle, because it specifically has to do with pesticides. So anyway, this is one that I had to have this cover. And then the next 4 are for my Reading Around the World challenge. So I couldn't decide between these 2 Camus. We have The Outsider and The Plague. So this one is literally about a plague. And then we have The Outsider, which is much smaller. And this is about just a man who's sort of like a nonconformist to society. I don't know, it's kind of one of those descriptions that's quite vague, but sometimes those books are like the best ones. This is a short story collection. It's literally called 6 Stories. It says, these 6 stories of obsession, secrets, delusions, and desires from one of the greatest European writers shows individuals caught up in forces beyond their control. But he has been referred to as a master of the short story. I've literally never heard of him before. I was just doing research for this challenge and his name came up, so hopefully this one will be interesting. And then lastly, we have Nostalgia. This is for Romania. It says, nostalgia turns the dark world of communist Bucharest into a place of strange enchantments. Here, a man plays increasingly death-defying games of Russian roulette, a child messiah works his magic in the tenements, a young man explores gender boundaries, a woman relives her youth, and an architect becomes obsessed with the sound of his new car horn with unexpected consequences. I think somebody recommended him to me in the comments of one of my previous videos, so I looked him up. This is one of the maybe a little bit longer ones. It's not too bad, about 330 pages. It might be a little bit tricky, this one. There is a little pronunciation guide at the opening for like the Romanian language, because I'm sure there's going to be some books in here or some words in here that are maybe a little bit tricky for me to pronounce. So this will be very interesting. It's kind of hard to tell, like we have abstract art on the cover and kind of a more vague description. So this is definitely going to be probably kind of a challenging read for me. It also says that it blends reality and symbolism. And I know a lot of symbolism, especially if it's political metaphors or something about a country that I'm not really familiar with. I just miss things because I'm not super familiar with all of the history of all of the countries that I'm reading from. So anyway, hopefully this one's interesting and it doesn't lose me. Hello again, friends. You've made it to the end if you've made it this far. So I've had the unfortunate news that my last book for this haul has been delayed for whatever reason. So I don't have it like physically to show to you, but I did want to mention it in this video because I'm very, very excited for it. And that is Julia Armfield's Private Rights. I don't even recall what it's about. I don't even need to know. She has kind of become an auto-buy author for me. She only has 3 things currently out in publication, but I read her for the first time a couple of years ago on my first trip to Florida. I was taking a girls trip. I wanted something that kind of was water themed as like my beach read, and so I took Our Wives Under the Sea, which I have over here. Fell in love with the cover and the concept. It's very like kind of Lovecraftian, speculative. There's body horror vibes. This would be a good one if you're wanting something that's not actually too creepy or too scary, but you want something that's like a little bit weird. This would be a really good one. When I went back to Florida just this summer, I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna read her short story collection. Again, speculative. She kind of blends like science fiction, horror, mythology, feminism. She blends a whole bunch of stuff in these, and I really did enjoy these. Anyway, so when I found out that she had a 3rd book, which I don't think is all that old, I don't think it's been out for that long, I immediately had to get it. But I'm really excited to read it. I think it's gonna be, if it's anything even remotely similar to these other 2, I know that I'm gonna like it. I wish she had more published. She was like shortlisted for like a Young Writer of the Year award back in 2019. She's gonna be an auto-buy author for me. So Private Rights is the last one that I have coming that I'm very excited for. So you have actually made it to the end. These are all the books that I have hauled, minus Private Rights. Maybe you find a new favorite read in my little stack. You guys let me know what you are planning to read, not just for the fall, but anything that's on your TBR or what you've read recently that you really love, because I'm always looking for new recommendations. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.